My name is John Newnham. I am the Professor of Obstetrics in the field of maternal-fetal medicine and Head of the Division of Obstetrics and Gynecology at the University of Western Australia. I am also the founder and chair of the Australian Preterm Birth Prevention Alliance. I'm the clinical lead investigator for the preterm birth prevention part of the EVE-M initiative. Preterm birth is defined as birth before 37 completed weeks of pregnancy. It is the single greatest cause of death in children up to 5 years of age. Across the world, 15 million children are born preterm each year. And for 1 million of these children, the day they are born is the day they will die. In Australia, the rate of preterm birth is 8 to 9%. But in Indigenous Australians, the rate is almost double at 14%. In USA, rates are even higher, 10 to 12% overall and 15% in African Americans. Babies born at the very early survivable ages are likely to spend much of their early life in an intensive care unit, followed thereafter by risks of developing lifelong disabilities from cerebral palsy, chronic lung disease, deafness and blindness. Babies born at the later preterm ages, closer to full term, may go on to lead a normal life, but many who may appear unaffected at first will go on to develop behavioural and learning problems at school ages. Discovering how to prevent preterm birth needs to be one of our highest priorities in medical research. In Western Australia, we have shown that by implementing strategies using current knowledge, we can lower the rate of preterm birth across the population by about 8%. That finding has now led to the development of the Australian Preterm Birth Prevention Alliance, the world's first such national program. But our ability to prevent many of the remaining cases is limited by our lack of knowledge. Discovery research is vital. During the 1980s and 1990s, we all focused on the uterus, trying to prevent preterm birth by stopping labour after it had already started. Eventually we learnt that such an approach doesn't work. It is all too late. In the years that followed, we focused our attention on the cervix, the lower part of the uterus, and which functions as a canal, separating the sterile intrauterine cavity from the vagina, containing its many bacteria and other organisms. We learnt a great deal, and some of that knowledge has now been applied as clinical treatments, but it will only prevent a small percentage of cases. We now know that the very early preterm births, the ones that we are most keen to prevent, are mostly due to some sort of infection travelling up from the vagina through the cervix and into the uterus. It is time to learn more about the vaginal environment. Studies decades ago, based on the technology of the 1980s and 1990s, tried hard to treat apparent infections in the vagina, but failed to prevent preterm birth. But we now have a new opportunity to apply our modern microbiological tests, far more powerful than the tests we had before, and through the use of EVE-M IVRs, harness the health-promoting properties of an optimal microbiome to alter the vaginal environment and prevent harmful organisms travelling up into the sterile uterus. And that is why the EVE-M initiative is the next logical step in our research journey to prevent preterm birth. Development of the intravaginal ring technologies will allow slow release of a bioactive produced by beneficial vaginal microbiota, as well as progesterone, giving us opportunities that we have never had before. We estimate that in Australia and the US alone, the EVE-M IVR has the potential to save thousands of lives and several billions in healthcare costs each year. The EVE-M project has a real chance of making giant leaps in this field. The project should get us to the point of being able to introduce novel strategies ready for full clinical trials. The Australian Preterm Birth Prevention Alliance, with full representation by Australia's leading perinatal specialists across all our states and territories, is the ideal platform to then trial and implement discoveries made by EVM as they come online. This is a very exciting time for those of us who work in the field of preterm birth prevention. Making discoveries that can be applied at the earliest times in life, when the chances of improving the lifelong health of our people is at their greatest. Thank you.